I remember we had a tank got disabled. It's funny in a way, but it wasn't funny because it was disabled. We had to repair it, and so we were in one place. All of a sudden, rounds started coming in. It was like that. You hit the ground, it's not a thought. It's not a half a second. I don't know how quick it is, as fast as you can fall to the ground because you know things are coming your way.
Ask a Vet is dedicated to documenting and preserving veteran stories in their own words on their own terms before their stories are gone forever. Each episode is an unfiltered conversation about who they were before service during war and their adjustment to coming home. If you believe these stories matter, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Your support helps us preserve the voices of those who served. Ask a Vet is proud to partner with Utah Honor Flight, part of the National Honor Flight Network, giving veterans the trip of a lifetime to Washington, D.C. to visit the memorials built in their honor. Every flight is free to veterans and made possible by generous donors. To learn more or support the mission, visit utahhonorflight.org or find your local hub at honorflight.org. And now back to the show.
My name is Dwight Moss. My background, I joined the Marines out in Washington State, well, actually in Portland. That's where I joined. I was born in Murphy, North Carolina, not too many miles from here. My family traveled a lot, so I was in a lot of different schools. But I wanted to get in the Marine Corps, and I couldn't when I was 16. And then when I knew I was going to be drafted, I went down and signed up.
Why the Marines?
I just always wanted to be in the Marines. That's just, that was no particular reason. I guess the macho, I held a push-up record at the school I was at, and so I like to do challenging things,
What was the push-up record?
At that time, I did 85.
Wow.
Later on, I'd done 125, but but you'd have to do a lot to get to that point. Yeah, you do a lot. But athletics became a focus after my injuries, and I recovered. I began to focus more, especially after I got out of the Marine Corps. Let's see. Am I giving you my background?
Oh, that's good. So, was your family military or no?
No, my dad was, and my grandfather was.
World War II?
World War II for my grandfather. My dad was Korean. Yeah.
What did he do over there?
He inspected planes, and that was probably his downfall. One of them exploded real close to him, and it had never been the same since then. I mean, all the men were killed except him. So, I'm told by an uncle, he never did tell me this, that he wandered around for days, didn't know where he was at or whatever else.
Wow.
But it did affect him pretty drastically. It robbed his life for a long period of time. The last 10 years, I would say that he came back to life by getting off the drugs. Butch mentioned all these opiates. They had him drugged out. And he lived that way. And that's where I've seen him most of the time. Yeah.
Did he ever talk about anything over there or no?
No, I guess we were too shy to do it, to talk about it. I had a sister-in-law and a half-sister that learned more about his situation than I did. Seemed like the boys, including myself, shied away from bringing it up. If he had brought it up, we'd have been comfortable with that.
Yeah. And how old were you when you joined the Marines then?
I joined the Marines at 19, turned 20 in boot camp, 21 in Vietnam. So
was boot camp in California?
Yeah.
San Diego?
Yeah. Camp Pendleton.
Tell me about that.
Well, it was quite an experience. I never thought too much about it until I signed in. That first flight was nothing compared to our flight when it was the last flight before Vietnam. But I got there.
Hold on. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that, I can tell you a lot about it, but when I was leaving for general warfare training and then a quick trip to Vietnam, I really, I have a hard time. And it's not that it's painful. It's just that my girlfriend, my fiance, and my mom clung to me. And I didn't want to cry. I wasn't going to cry. I'm a Marine and I'm going to be tough. Well, I was, but I was in serious pain, mentally,
inside.
emotionally. Yeah. I got on the plane and the guy said that was a great send-off, and only words I could mutter was thank you.
If you or someone you know isn't getting the VA benefits you've earned, click the link in our description. We've teamed up with a group of experts that help veterans build stronger VA claims and get the benefits they deserve. Click the link in our description for a free consultation.
Because, the first time, you're coming back after training, you're going to spend 30 days at home, and so no big deal. But they were bothered by my departure more than I was. They were bothered by my going to Vietnam more than I was. I expected it, so.
And what year was that?
I went to Vietnam in 65, just a second, 66.
66, okay.
Yeah. And let's see.
You flew over there?
We flew over there. It was about close enough to the water that you could have dove in if you'd wanted to. We flew low.
Was it a commercial airline or was it the
It
military?
was some military.
Okay.
The seats were on the sides of it, and down the middle, they weren't normal, what we would consider normal seats.
And what was the mood on the plane?
I guess you might say it was somber, but I don't remember any particular mood. I think we were looking for anticipation as to what was to come. We got to Vietnam and
Where did you land over there first?
Da Nang.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't wasn't as fortunate as Ernie, and I've got a book that'll soon be in print. I've learned a thing or two, and the reason I say that is the war was so poorly prosecuted that it cost a lot of needless lives. And so even the generals, they should have done something because we were pawns. The foot soldier was literally a pawn, and I can tell you about some of those stories. I can't tell all of them because, we'd be here forever. But the first time we went out just to acclimate to the heat. And then the first assignment, we were up on a hill, and Butch talked about the tanks. I remember we had a tank got disabled, and it's funny in a way, but it wasn't funny because it was disabled. We had to repair it, and so we were in one place. All of a sudden, rounds started coming in. It was like that. You hit the ground, it's not a thought. It's not a half a second. I don't know how quick it is, as fast as you can fall to the ground because things are coming your way. But that was one of the first encounters we had when I went over there.
How long had you been out when that happened?
Out
in Vietnam. How long have you been in Vietnam?
I'd say at that time, probably maybe 3 weeks.
Okay.
We were moving fast. Times were moving, and my time was spent on Outpost. I ate sea rations predominantly, and they were actually better than the food they might bring into us most of the time. So we learned to fix them.
What was your favorite sea rat?
I think peas and ham, I think, was one of the favorites. One of the worst was potatoes and beef. Me and my buddy Tony Vargas, I'd love to be able to contact him, but we'd save those up and then we would spice them up because peppers grew around the area there, and we'd cook them in our helmet liner because that was metal. And so we made some pretty good dishes out of stuff we didn't like, and that was interesting. Tony, I helped Tony with his letters to his girlfriend, and we just became very tight. And maybe I can tell you about the incident with Tony along the way here, but me and him alone defended the men on the rear after we lost one man and had another one killed. We were the defenders, myself and Tony, and it was just a close relationship. It's I knew him as well as anyone I've ever known because we bunked together. We didn't have no bunks. We were in a pup tent, and sometimes if the weather was dry, we were just laying out on the ground, with we did have ponchos available, but if it was not bad weather, we were laying on the ground.
You were just camping.
We were just camping all the time. Yeah, we had a Um, we had a guy, I wish I'd have kicked him out. I wish I'd have done something because I woke up sleeping on that hill one night. It's my time for wash, reached for my rifle, and it wasn't there. And I found out he had it. And then his rifle was atrocious. It was not taken care of. I still regret not telling him, not taking him to our commanding officer. Get this guy out of here. We don't need him. And he took it one time. We were in a hut, and we stacked our rifles by the door. Now, they're all M16s. But if you're a Vietnam veteran and you have a M16 rifle, you know which one is yours. I mean, they're similar, but you know yours. I went to the door on the way up because we took incoming fire, and they'd brought us in a couple beer, and we all felt pretty good. And we just took off yelling like banshees, but my rifle wasn't there. I finally had to grab the dirty one, the same guy. That was it was a sad thing that someone would do that, really.
The other incident, when you were on the first time you took fire and you said you just hit the dirt, was that kind of the first time everything just became super like, oh, I know this is.
Yeah. I guess maybe I realized subconsciously, I had 3 near deaths. And to understand what that means, it means you feel like you're not going to survive, period. It's not a close call. I had hundreds, if not thousands of bullets whizzing by, and I was diving over barbed wire, and bullets were everywhere. But that's not near death. Near death is when you are dying and you know you are dying. And that's quite a uncomfortable, I guess you'd say it's an uncomfortable feeling. But for me, I can't remember fear. And, and at that time I was a non-believer because I became a non-believer in Vietnam. I felt like this crap shouldn't go on. I mean, if I were God and all that, and people say that, and I know better today, but at the same time, at that time in my mental state, you see, and you see so much pain and hurt. You witness your buddies getting shot. You load them up in a bag. We had one day, and I'll go ahead and tell you about that. And of course, you can ask questions, whatever you want. But we went out on the right flank, 4 of us, right flank. And so what we were doing, we're going to alert the company. It was a large patrol. So we were to the right, so we could flush out, or they'd be flushed out when they shot us, is what it really amounted to. And we took incoming fire on that right flank. And one of my men out of the 4 had creases in his arm where the bullets, but it was just enough to get him hauled out. Like I am appreciative of those helicopters. And those helicopter gunships were phenomenal. I mean, they were phenomenal. They'd tear the place up, just a helicopter. But he got lifted out, and we got back in formation, and it settled down, quieted down. And I told my guys, I said, death is to the right. I said, death is to our right. And so, we're marching along. We got our rifles, and we come to an open, a clearing. We're on a dike that furnishes dry ground, but there's a rice paddy over here, a rice paddy in front of us, and then there's foliage just to our right, and there's foliage across that rice paddy, which gives you some cover. But there's also open rice paddy to the right, and so word came for me to take my men across that rice paddy and check out the area across, the high ground across. And, I use the term in my book, and that's the reason I say the soldier, it's the reason it's sad that the soldiers were not treated better. If you wanted to treat somebody poorly, treat the congressman and maybe the generals who should be looking at what's going on, because we were getting bumped off, and there was no chance to win the way the war was prosecuted, okay? But we had a little foliage right in front. It was heavy foliage to our right. and they wasn't going to do anything that close to us. They were, they were going to be from a distance. And so we're to go across that rice paddy. Of course, there's water in that rice paddy, and to get to the higher ground to cross. And I got Tony and Jerry together with me, and I told them, I said, we got to go across. I said, look, Jerry he had been there the least time, so I wanted to give him all benefits I could. And I told him, I said, I'll go first. Tony was there, Jerry was there, just the three of us were going across. I said, I'll go first, and got ready to go. And I said, when you get across, hit the ground. On the other side, below the dike, a bullet can't go through that dike. Hit the ground. And you're never so much alive as when death is so close. That's what I feel. You're alive. Your adrenaline is flowing. And I got ready to go, and I told him I'd go first. Well, I took the safety off, put my hand on the trigger, and I blasted through that little shallow area of growth that we had, a little camouflage. And I sailed across that water and mud and everything else. I couldn't feel it, because, death was to our right. And I told the men that. I said, death is to the right, okay? But I make it across. And of course, I hit the ground. You dive in as if the arms of a beautiful woman is welcoming you. Come right here. That's, you want to protect yourself. I was, I think, pretty astute at trying to stay alive. I wouldn't even walk an even pace on patrols. I might stop, back up a couple steps, and then go forward. I wanted to be the worst target I could be. But anyway, I made it across, and then here comes Tony. And Tony makes it. Hits the ground, does exactly what I told him. And here comes the third man, Jerry. We're going to make it. He's almost there. He gets in front of me and asks the question, what do you want me? I said, get the F down. I didn't get it out of my mouth till he was shot. Death is close by, and the soldier needs to realize that and act accordingly, and I think I done the best I could explaining what they needed to do. Tony knew, because he'd been there longer. He had seen more people die, and so had I. And so we knew what to do. But, his body was laying in the rice paddy, and he moaned a little bit. And then we tried to pull him. We did pull him up out of the water, and I thought I felt a heartbeat at first. And it faded away. He's just one out of 50-some-odd thousand. But he was one that I knew, and I wanted to protect. And somehow, I failed to do that. Not because I didn't say the right things, but somehow, he lost his life right there. And that was a tragedy. I'll go ahead and tell you about the rest of this journey, though. Going back in, we decided after we had secured that area around that mound, and I think the helicopter gunships scared the heck out of the VC in the woods. But they weren't gone. They were not gone. I felt like they were following us. And so we get attacked one more time. And we're in the middle of a rice paddy. There's a dike right here. And of all things, I go down and I'm in the water, and there's a leech. The leech is so aggravating. I don't know if you know what a leech is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I'm worried about a darn leech, because there's bullets out there too. And the guy in front of me got shot in the leg, and he was a great guy. He just got out for a while and came back. He actually signed up for another tour after he got back to the States.
Wow.
He came and visited me. I don't even remember his name because he's the only one I ever seen. And I've looked for Tony. He's on the list and never found Tony Vargas on a list. But he's a code for one of my, what do you call it? Getting into your, either getting into your checkbook or getting into something. He's
your
my
passcode,
code.
your
Well,
password.
when they say it may be a friend, I know who it is. Yeah, password.
Or the questions. The questions.
Yeah, they say it may be a friend. And so, we get through that and everything quiets down again. And that's what we're dealing with. See, that's what the foot soldier is dealing with. If we can face them, we can conquer them. But that wasn't the case 90-some% of the time. It just was not the case. It was, I guess you'd say, I feel like pawns in a shooting gallery because we're going on these dikes, and most of the time there's open rice paddies. Not all the time. Most of the time there is. And you know that there's danger all the time. You know that there's danger. And so, but we start up the patrol again because we're going home. We're going to base camp. It's not a big camp. It's not a camp with cots. It's a camp with tents,
Right.
Little tents,
Right.
And but we're headed in. We're glad to be headed in, and then we come to an area. I'm basically in the rice paddy, and Tony's coming behind me, and I crawl up on higher ground, start moving through that higher ground, but it's a lot of dry grass in there. The trail is shrunk down, so you can, where you follow easily enough. And suddenly, automatic weapon fire again. So they're at us again. And in that situation, we're the hunted. We think we're the hunter, but we are the hunted. It's like a man that is out west hunting for a game. He watches them and picks his time to fire, and we had to deal with that, and I asked Tony, I said, and I should have known he had cover. I said, "You got any cover back there?" I said, "I got grass. It won't stop a bullet, tall grass." And I had a decision to make. And for a lot of people, it would seem stupid, but I had to decide whether I was going to turn my rifle straight around or go up through the air and turn it back in that direction. Because if I went straight around, the grass is going to rattle all the way as I turn that rifle, because you want to be following the point of the rifle, where it's pointing, So I finally decided, I think my best chance is just to go over. And that's what I did, went over and brought the rifle down, and I crawled back in. I hadn't much more than got there. And me and Tony, we seen the VC. What they were doing, they were working their way up our single file rear, killing our guys. Well, we stopped them. We started firing, the two of us. There were other men around, but they were so low. Fear will kill you itself. They were hidden so well, man could come up and shoot them in the back. I told them, I said, "You got to get to where you can see these VC. You got to get to where you can see them, because otherwise they're going to kill you, And so they've been killing us, our men, all day long. And so Tony, me and him were firing, and he all of a sudden, he said, "My rifle's jammed." I think he had it on fully automatic. Well, I wanted him firing. I don't know if I'm getting away from the mic.
Yeah, if you stay back.
Yeah. I wanted him firing when I had to reload. We had 20-round magazines. And so I don't know why he chose fully automatic, because that burns it out. And those rifles will climb. They're not like some of the new rifles. They will climb on you. But I told him, "Now, you can think about this." I said, "Tony, relax. You can get it." I was not relaxed. But when I stepped on a landmine, I said, "You got to be relaxed." when that's a later event, but you can't get overly excited or you will die. It's what it amounts to. But Tony got his rifle, and we don't know how many there were. We know that after that, they left us. We brought one of their bodies in. How many they drug off, I have no idea. There's a continuation of this story that I'll go ahead and finish it since I'm on it. But we got back to camp, and we had the body, and they had unloaded the body next to where my pup tent was, and there was he was leaning up against a tree. Some sourpuss put a cigarette in his mouth. I don't believe in that stuff. I do not believe in that stuff.
Yeah.
I can kill people who are trying to kill my friends and me, but just that's one thing I don't like to do. But a person showed up. I'd never seen him before. And the commander interviewed me and Tony separately about that shooting event. And we both had our stories. But this guy showed up, and he looked at the guy, and he had the look on his face as if he's the one who shot the guy. Well, I'd never seen him before. His pants were slick, pressed. His shirt was pressed. His boots were clean. I'd never seen him before. But as soon as he caught my eye, he left. He knew that something, maybe the higher-ups got him a medal. Who knows? You don't know. But I know that me and Tony are the only ones that stopped it that day. Me and Tony. Yeah, I guess some of the other, meaty things. Well, there's one situation. I'll go ahead and tell you about that. We were trying to find a place to cross a wide river. And I'm familiar with fords. You know what a ford is?
A what?
A ford.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You thought, a wider place in the river that you might be able to cross. And I thought maybe I found one. And so I eased in, rifle, grenades, backpack, metal helmet, that whole number. I eased in. All of a sudden, the ground fell out from under me. There was no ground. I struggled to get back up. And I think I made it twice, maybe 3 times. I had all that weight. And I said, you never thought this would happen to you. That's my mind. Because I knew this was the end. Because the river was moving, I would be washed away from all help. And it just so happened that some man got the men on the bank to lock arms. And I faintly felt his hand, and I didn't resist anything. I faintly felt it. And then they pulled me in.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite an experience because I knew I was dying. I knew this was the end of it. We'd had people drown before. It wasn't like something new, It's so it was a difficult situation.
I bet that happened. I bet that happened so fast too.
It happened very fast. I went down, and then when I couldn't get back up, I knew the end was here. One thing that's puzzled me to some degree, I wasn't strangled on water when they pulled me out. And I believe that drowning victims probably take in water after they pass out, because I think I just resisted trying to breathe water. I mean, I don't know. All I know is that, wasn't spitting and all this other stuff. But I've been under that water long enough to be spitting and take some in. And that guy, although I didn't have any belief at that time, I seen that guy one other time walking along the river. And I was thinking to myself, we were out there trying to dry out under a tree. And I said, man, he's vulnerable. He's walking along the edge of that river. He could be shot any time. And I never did see him again. So it's possible he's my angel. I don't know. It doesn't matter, because we have one trip to the DMZ, and I'll tell you about that, and then whatever else you want me to tell you about. But we camped along the way, with our pup tents. It rained some, and we'd collect water off the tent because it was much better than what we could get, out of rice paddies or whatever. And we finally got to our destination, and there are craters. So there'd been a lot of bombing going on in that area. And it was, well, they left us in the front. Okay, this was open. The crater was here. Another one was over there. I don't know how many more. And then there was a trail that led into the foliage in front of us. So I didn't know what was coming up next. We were not told anything, but we got dry enough within a couple of days that somebody needed to go fetch some water. And I could see a puddle in that crater next to us, a little ways away, but fairly close. And so I took the canteens and filled it up. It was murky water, murky. Grit in it. It was, but if you can't stay hydrated, you won't survive. But we had these tablets we put in it, and we thought that would save us. So we put those in it, shook it up, and we drank that water. I don't know how many days we've been there. We've been there 2 or 3 days. All of a sudden, a group of men ran past us. Our gunny sergeant was in the middle of that group. He was taking about 15 men up that trail. All kinds of firing took place. We don't know what. Helicopters were there. Some of them were shot down. One man was burned up when he landed his helicopter because it caught fire. I remember a big man that jumped out of his. I went to check him, and his eyes were glazed over. He didn't make the fall, even though he jumped out. I was thinking about that when Ernie was talking about the rice paddy. It probably cushioned him a little bit, and so,
for sure,
you need a cushion of some sort.
What was happening on the hill? Did you find out when they came running by?
When they came by us?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't go in right away. Probably the next day. No, maybe it might have been 2 days, day or two. And when we went in, we got through the foliage. It was a pretty good trail. Every man was dead. We don't know what kind of fight they had. We don't know how many of the enemy carried off to demoralize us as if we did no harm. But I believe they probably did some harm. It was a phenomenal scene, because there's men here, men up there. And then the gunny sergeant had been shot in the head. Evidently, he was shot, and it decapitated him, like from the ears up. And I'll never forget it. He was laying like 8 or 10 feet over here. His brains were in a neat pile, as if they were untouched, as if they were a picture in a magazine. And, of course, I don't know if you ever killed chickens or not. That sounds gross, but that's why I said, we killed chickens on the farm because that's what when we ate a chicken, we killed it when we were on the farm. And the movement of the chickens was phenomenal after you cut its head off. It would take off running. How far? It depended. Some of them further than others. But the gunny sergeant must have moved around. Not that he knew anything. I had a stepson who watched a beheading of men on some of these gross TV channels. All he had to do was watch one.
Yeah.
Because he said the man stood up and just stood up.
Wow.
That's what I surmise happened, and our task, though, was to gather up the bodies and all the parts of them, try to keep them together. And the only other one that was bad, real bad, was the one in the helicopter. We had the big guy in the helicopter out in front, but we had this guy. He might have weighed 30 or 40 pounds. He was burned up. You could see where his skull was. You could see his kind of a body fragment, about down to the knees, but he was cremated, basically, and he might have landed successfully. But those helicopters get very hot if they explode. They get extremely hot.
Yeah.
And so he was probably one. And I got very weak during that time. And I wondered if it was all the bodies or the smell or whatever was going on. And so I wasn't able to function, but I carried bodies. I did my part.
Yeah.
We got them all loaded, and I told the corpsman, I said, I need some help. I don't know what's going on. I don't have any strength. And he said, well, can you hold out? I didn't have a good relationship with that corpsman. I told him, yeah, I guess I can. I've been holding out. I couldn't eat, could not swallow food. So, that's, it wasn't that I wouldn't chew it up, but your body said no when you tried to swallow. And so it's, but anyway, we got back to the main camp, and a lot of tales on that camp, but we got back to the main camp and headed to some sort of base camp. I have no idea exactly what it was, but I was holding a canteen all the way, drinking. That's all I did was drink because I couldn't eat. We got to where we were going, and we stopped, and I laid back against the fence. They had probably an 8-foot fence or something there, and I leaned back against it. Sit there a minute. I got up, and I went to find somebody. I said, I need some help. And that time, within minutes, they had me packed in ice. They were packing me in. I didn't move, though. I did not flinch. I didn't feel the cold. It wasn't like it was terrible or anything like that. And they eventually not only packed me in ice, they put me in front of an air conditioner. And I didn't move. I did not move. I didn't raise my hand. I didn't say, this is cold. I didn't say anything. And it was, I don't know, it was...
Were you having a heat stroke?
Oh, no, I wasn't having a heat stroke. My fever was 106.2.
Wow.
In the end, it was malaria, in the end. Okay. Didn't know at the time, that was an ordeal too. But they took me out from under that cooler, and I still had ice, and they put me on a cot, and I was laying there on that cot. And people can either believe this or not believe this, but it's a fact of my life. I suddenly found myself up in the tent, just like you'd be up in the top of this building here, in the top of the tent. And I could see my body, and it was real. And then I traveled. I could travel like that. I was in Shooting Creek, near where I lived as a kid, in a flash. When I got back, I really don't know exactly, but I did wind up back. And I've used that experience. It helps me with the things like eternal life, things like your flesh counts for nothing. The words I've spoken to you, they are full of life and the Spirit. And so that's a scripture. And although at that time I wasn't buying into that, it didn't matter. I don't tell God what to do.
Yeah.
None of us do.
Yeah,
so, but, and I thought when I was there, I said, how are you thinking? And I've come to realize that article in Epic Times, where does your consciousness go? And I must have wrote 6 pages concerning that, because your consciousness is beyond the body. The self is beyond the body. When Christ's body was in the tomb, he had gone to paradise with the thief, or to meet the thief. So I'm not saying this to get scripture into it, but it's my life, my experience.
Yeah.
And it's and I understand those teachings. I grasp and I embrace those teachings because we are greater than a body. We are greater. And unless we believe that, our life is a short span and it's over, but I believe it. It doesn't bother me. We're going to have a service here on Easter Day. and it's titled Your Resurrection Story, and that's something else. And I've got off track here a little bit.
But I want to ask you something. Do you feel like do you remember consciously going back to your body? You remember feeling like you made a choice to go back, or no, you just ended up there?
No, I ended up there.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a conscious choice. I think it was God's choice.
Yeah.
I don't think it was mine.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel any discomfort. I didn't feel fear.
Yeah.
And, people talk about the fear of death. Well, Apostle Paul says, fear of death is no more. That's what he says. And I won't get too off on that, but those things are helpful to people.
Yeah.
Are very helpful to people. And when you're struggling, but until you're able to receive that and believe that, it's just like me when I was over there and I didn't believe in anything. It was no benefit to me.
Yeah.
But when I was stepped on that landmine.
What's that story?
Okay. Well, we'd changed territories. We were in an area I was familiar with. We had snipers all the time. We didn't deal much with landmine. Snipers. I knew how to deal with snipers. And we were on that. I want to tell you one other story right in front of it, because we were going on a patrol one night, and we got flares shot up. And I called in and I said, we're getting overhead flares. We're lit up like a Christmas tree. I said, we're lit up. And they said, are you in position? I said, I'm in a position, but I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And so the guy said, stay put. And the next day when I made my report, he wanted me to say that I went to where I was supposed to go. I said, I can't do that. I cannot say that because we don't know what's out there. And it was their instructions. I followed them. If it had said proceed on, I would have, but it was, and the reason I say that, when you get to the landmine, we were patrolling. I was blowing up all kinds of mines. I'm blowing up some of my men's grenades, using them. And I had green guys. That's how fast we were losing men. I had green guys. I didn't have to go first, but I did. And
what are you looking? Tell me, just give me a layman's term. What are you looking for at the mines to know where a mine is?
Well, my mindset, we had found mines and we had blown them up, but also we were approaching a hut, doors and windows. I had gone back to looking for someone with a rifle. I wasn't looking at the ground. Okay, that was the problem. And I don't know if I'd have seen it anyway. Bouncing Betty has 3 small prongs, much smaller than my fingers. And if you hit one of them, it's coming up, And so I was headed toward that hut, not far away from it. All of a sudden, that thing came out of the ground. And I didn't know what happened. I didn't hear it. Didn't hear one thing. I've got a big bruise on my left heel where it hit the heel. Probably saved my life by not coming up further, because it cut me from the ankle to the esophagus, and the chest, and under the arm, abdomen, took chunks out of these legs. I'm not talking about little chunks, some little ones, but they were big chunks. It's a mean thing, and it's meant to get a lot of guys, but I think I held it down by being on it. And it came up and hit my heel and glanced off. The reason I theorized that, the injuries come from this way, and they come on the inside of this leg, and they hit the chest on this side, and there's a hole under this arm, and there's more problems with this arm than with this one. It got minor, but this one got more majors. And so I theorized, and it's just a theory, but it makes sense that it came up to my left, and I depressed it somewhat.
So you remember walking towards the hut, and that was it?
Oh, yeah.
And then it was nothing.
Well, I just stood there, and I said, you got to be calm. You got to keep your cool, basically, those words. I don't know exactly, but that's what I said to myself. because people die under severe stress. They make the wounds better and they bleed faster and all this. And I was trying to be as calm as possible. I might be dying, but well, might as well die calmly. I don't know. Well, seriously, I mean, we're going to pass through here. And so the battle, and we just have a battle until we finish with this body.
Are you in excruciating pain, or is it more like you're in shock?
I wasn't in pain at the beginning. Okay. The pain began. I hollered at him. I said, I need some help over here. Because the guys behind me hollered more than I did because they wasn't hurt that bad, but they were alert enough to yell for help. And I finally got the corpsman there and asked him to clear my throat because there was blood and I think I chewed gum and I think it was all lodged right here. And this was cut. I had trouble eating for a while. And good thing it didn't get over here. I mean, in that respect, I'm fortunate. And but I just said, I need help. And the corpsman got there and he didn't know where to start. Where do I need? I said, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't feel anything at that point. The first time I felt anything was when they started to move me, to put me on a stretcher. And then it hurt, and I moaned about that. They got me up on a stretcher, and I said, look, I want my rifle. It was back over there. They'd leaned it up against the hut. It had been with me since I'd come into Vietnam. I want that damn rifle beside me. I don't know if I could have done anything, but I could have done something as long as I could see because my sight had come back to me. But when I went blind, I figured that's the end of it. It's
So at first you couldn't see.
I didn't go blind right away, but I think the blood seeping into the soil of Vietnam, then I didn't have enough blood to furnish. And I think they elevated my legs and the lower torso enough so that sight came back to me, is what I theorize. But that's the way you do it. I mean, you try to take care of the vitals. And so, but I didn't know what hit me. I didn't know I thought I was shot. I thought I was shot. I was more familiar with snipers. And Jerry had been shot in the chest, and we'd had other men shot. And I thought I was shot. I didn't realize I was cut all over, and that was an experience, probably better that I didn't know, how bad it was. It was bad enough that they sent officers to my mom's house to tell her I wouldn't make it. Wow. That drives me nuts. They shouldn't have went until they knew, because my brother told me how terrible it was at the house. Can you imagine?
No,
I don't know if
imagine.
You have.
No, I can't imagine.
Yeah, if you have kids, you imagine getting, not unless you have to give that news, don't give it out, and so it was, but I began to feel pain off and on from that point. And
did the airlift you out?
Oh, yeah, there's helicopter me out, yeah.
How did that feel like it happened soon, or feel like it took forever from your perspective? I can imagine it felt...
It's kind of funny, the commanding officer on the patrol with me, I hadn't been keeping up with where we were because I wasn't in charge. He said, you know where we are? That was earlier on. I thought about that. I hope he knows where we are. But they brought the helicopter in and, took me back to Da Nang Hospital. And I stayed there for an extended time. I don't know how long. I guess I have to check my records to see.
When did you realize what had happened? Was it a long time after or no?
No, when they started working on me, I knew that I had more than one injury. I knew that it was more than one injury. I think I didn't try to decipher what it was exactly. The immediate thing was clear my throat, get the junk out so I can breathe and all that. That was the main thing. And that was challenging. That was challenging. But
and hold on, how long had you been in Vietnam when this happened? How long had you been over there?
I'd been close to 10 months.
Okay.
Well, with a break to recover from malaria.
Right.
I got malaria.
Yep.
And you recover quite well from malaria. You can. It can kill you too. It can be pretty devastating. So I'd been close to 10 months all total.
Okay.
Including the break. And I had I could went on R&R about any time, but I didn't want to leave and have to come back. I mean, I'm just going to stay here.
I get that.
Yeah.
Seems like it'd be impossible to want to come back. I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of a weird.
Well, when you see these things happening, you don't want to come back, and it's just what I chastise. I chastise the generals in the Congress for not looking at the war and realizing what was taking place. If Jane Fonda had attacked the congressman and the high-up generals, she'd have probably been okay. But the soldier, you have no choice. Do or die. You follow orders, do or die. You cannot have a military unless a soldier follows the command. If it is to fly through bullets on foot, I mean, you've got to have that. Not that I agree with this war, but you've got to have people who follow a command. And so our job is just like when we started to cross that rice paddy, was do or die trying. And that's the way it is. That's the life of a soldier. I mean, you sign that over to Uncle Sam, so to speak. You give him your life to do whatever, and that's, and I'm, in my book, I give them a little bit of hell, because I've loaded the bodies. I've seen the bodies. I've seen men die. I've held men dying and all that stuff. And it's kind of a rough and tragic thing,
It's heavy.
Yeah, it is. It's, in my recovery, I started swimming a lot. I swam and swam and swam. I'd swim for an hour or two because you could swim when you couldn't walk well. I eventually could run okay, and it's, well, when I got to where I could run, I could keep up with my commander. He was a young guy too, and I still had this foot problem. I call it foot drop or whatever.
Back up just a little bit. So you're in Da Nang in the hospital
Right.
for how long?
I'm going to say it's between 2 and 3 weeks. I didn't have I'd have to look at my records to really.
And did they ship you home after that?
They shipped me home after that, but not immediately. I had to go through a lot of treatments at the hospital, the tent hospital.
Yeah.
In Da Nang. And it's just like the malaria. They take blood every day. And those guys weren't good with the needles at that time. Well, it's no reflection on them, but they do the best they can.
Did you get infection or no?
I don't know of getting an infection.
So
now, one thing the Navy did, the Marines are part of the Navy, and I was in a naval hospital.
Yeah.
They had me cleaning my own wounds as soon as I was able, and then one thing I resent, they decided they'd do skin grafts, and they messed up this leg through here and here, taking that skin off. Most of it didn't take. It did not take, and what did is worse than the ones that didn't. I have one under here that came off, and I could watch that flesh grow in. It just filled in, and they didn't consult me. That's what I resent about that. I thank God for the people who saved my life, who did what needed to be done. But I think that was kind of, let's try this.
Were they doing that in Da Nang then?
No, they did that at Camp Naval in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Camp Naval Hospital at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Yeah, they didn't need to do anything to save my life. First time I...
How did they fly you back there?
Well, they flew me by planes, of course.
Yeah.
And I remember going through either the Philippines or Okinawa.
Were you on a medical plane then, or no?
Well, I was stretched out.
Okay, so you were in okay.
Yeah, I was not sitting up.
Okay,
yeah,
that's what I was asking.
Yeah, I probably had a butch moment with drugs. I don't know what they gave me in the hospital, and I never take drugs. I've given 95% of all the drugs that the VA gave me to someone that said they had a prescription. I just don't take any more than I have to.
Yeah.
But this particular time, that table next to my bed, there was a little creature appeared on it. Looked like a small witch doctor. I'm serious. I said, and finally I said, that guy's not there. He's not here. And then I'd get rid of him. As soon as I relaxed, he was back again, It was, that's drugs. I'm sure that was something to do with
sure.
drugs. But I went through the Philippines, through Alaska, and someone said I came through Camp Pendleton, but I don't know that I did. I thought I went from Alaska to North Carolina because of what they done. Now, I was in serious pain in Alaska when they were carrying me and the woman knew it because I was protesting, and she came up and gave me something. I believe it was morphine, and it just
knocked you out.
Well, I wasn't knocked out, but I was lulled out. I didn't hurt.
Yeah.
I didn't hurt, and so that was that was something else. The swimming, I wound up with a meritorious mass for life saving because I became a swimmer because of my injuries. So it's possible a young boy lived because of my injuries. I don't know, who knows? But I do know this. I was a lifeguard, 3 lifeguards on duty, and they said, we have a drowning victim in the pool. And I went around the other side. 2 lifeguards had the young man, boy, not really a man. And they left. No pulse, no breath. I couldn't find any of that. But I began resuscitation procedures, and he came through.
Wow.
I stayed with him, pumping him. When the ambulance came, I stayed by his cot that they put him on all the way up the hospital steps till I got into the lobby, and someone there took over. Wow. I was breathing, making sure he was breathing. And I guess some of the ladies, I wish I'd had the foresight to find out who he was. I'd like to have seen him, but must have put me in. But anyway, I got a meritorious mass, which is pretty significant.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, that's, I'll probably talk more about that when I write the second book, because it's in the recovery stages. Now, there's other Vietnam stories. I don't remember what they are.
I want to back up. You said you had 3 times when you thought you were going to die.
Okay, the one time
was the one that drowning.
Yeah,
I would assume. What was the second one?
Well, the second one that I know about was when I went blind.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. And the third one that I didn't figure out till later was malaria, or when I evacuated from my body.
Yeah.
And hey, look, I can tell you the details of that encounter to the detail about the tent, the guy on the cooler. And I said to him when he got off, I said, "You're not very sick." I mean, I was just about near death, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I'm very thankful though for everything, and I think it's helped me. One thing I got out, if I'd had a good recruiter, I might have stayed in. They were offering me quite a few $1,000s and a
to
ring.
Stay in.
Yeah, and I was sergeant. I would have been staff sergeant, and I don't know why I didn't stay in. But the guy didn't try to recruit me really, and maybe he was jealous of what they offered me. Well, see, I was writing programs. I was teaching those programs, and I was doing hands-on with those programs on the Navy, with the Navy corpsmen, because these Navy corpsmen were going to live with the Marines, either on a ship somewhere or in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And so we tried to help them to be ready for what was coming. And it was excellent duty. I still don't know. I've done a lot of menial work after that for a while. And I thought, why didn't you stay in? I didn't think about it at the time, because you're headed. I mean, my life's not been bad anyway, but it's still, I think about the position that I had was pretty phenomenal already,
Your mom, okay, so your mom was told you weren't going to make it.
Right.
And then when she found out you were going to make it, what's that story? Do you know?
I don't know. I just know that I got a call and my uncle was on the phone. I don't remember at that time talking with my mom. she's probably like me. She couldn't hold herself together, because a good thing can trip you up as good as
Yeah,
as
for
much
sure.
as a bad thing. So I don't know. But I do have a little letter from I think he's 6 or 7-year-old Dale's. I'm going to put it in that book and ask everybody. The lady helping me with the book talked to my second brother, but Dale wrote, and he talks about I was small, 6 years old or 7, I don't remember what, and I don't know much, but this is what I know. And he talks about clinging to his mother's leg as she is losing it. He's scared. And so it was mishandled at the best, but they handled it. But what's the anxiety that do you have children?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the anxiety?
Oh, I can't imagine.
Yeah. You can't. Yeah. That's not something that it only should be told when it's definite,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of miracles out there, and I'm probably one of them.
So, okay. So when was your recovery done? I mean, when did you how long were you after you got back, after you got to the States?
Okay. I was in the Naval Hospital, and I remember telling the guys I was going to go to the bathroom, and they said, "Well, we'll get you a wheelchair." I said, "No, I felt like I could walk, and they knew better because I'd been laying in the bed too long. I got about 10 feet. There happened to be a post there, and I grabbed that post and held on to it, and they came with a wheelchair. But you know what I did? I would do squats holding onto the sink, and then I started doing not the best push-ups, but I started doing push-ups again and trying to get stronger. And so that was part of recovery, and I had therapy. The lady that worked with me on my nerve damage, they would use electrical stimulation to cause my foot to move because I couldn't even get the foot to move. These toes won't move very well. They'll move, but not like this right one, nowhere near.
Right.
And sometimes it's aggravating getting this boot on or something.
Yeah.
Or snowshoes. But she worked with me a lot. And one day, and I do whirlpool baths. And are you familiar with electrical stimulation?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'd put that up here somewhere, and that foot would move. And of course, they did that. And then one day she said, "Move that toe." She just insisted. Finally, I got the least amount of movement out of that toe that I could get, but that was a beginning. And so I began recovering there. And then the swimming, and I ran, lifted weights, done push-ups, done the number. I've done Ironman distances since I was injured.
Wow.
Yeah, I wouldn't do them now, but I'm 80 years old right now. So,
well, you don't look 80.
Yeah. Well, time tells on you after a while, but it's okay. You live the best you can while you're living. And if things are working, that's great. And if they're not, well, I was having issues here about issues with my heart, tricuspid valve, and stuff like that. And I found out that I wasn't getting the oxygen. So I wasn't getting enough oxygen so that I'd start running and I'd just bomb out in just a little while. When they checked me out, I wasn't getting oxygenated blood to my muscles. It's just, you've got to build your VO2 max, and you can't build it unless the valves are working and everything's working. And so that was a new thing to me because I'd worked pretty hard to be able to do the things I did, and I didn't think I'd have those kind of issues, but I did. But I thought, well, if the best I can do is write and walk, I said, I'll be okay. I mean, do what you can. I've got what is it? It's, what? You can't do what you can't do, but you can do what you can do. So if you do what you can do today, what you can't do today, maybe you can do tomorrow. proverb. That's what I
Okay.
wanted to call that, a proverb. Well, I did that when my daughter wanted to go and do a 5K, and I wasn't sure I could do it at that time, and then I made that up. I decided I'd walk the 3.5-mile loop and shuffle along, and that's why you can't do what you can't do. That's irrelevant. Do you think about that? It's
True.
what you cannot do is irrelevant. Makes it
Might as well not even worry about it,
you
right?
might as well not worry about that part.
Yeah.
Just do what you can.
Yeah.
And if I cried in my beer too much, I would be depressed and not have a good life. I have a good life right now. I think I have a good life. I have children and grandchildren. I've taught all my children and grandchildren to ski. And my wife has prevented me from going this year, but I told her if the slopes are still up on Friday when I've got an appointment at the VA at 8:30, as soon as I get done with that appointment, if the weather's not real crappy, I'm going to go ski for a few hours, Lord willing. But I like to ski. It's just, so she was just nervous about me being out.
How have you saw a lot of traumatic things when you were over there. How have you dealt with that now that you're older?
You mean the trauma of other people?
Yeah, just the trauma of what you saw over there. That's a lot. It's heavy.
It's, well, one thing is to be thankful. And another thing is to pray for those families of those people. Because sometimes there's not much you can do but be thankful. And it's, and that's basically how I deal with it. I think it's, and I look forward and I look outward. What can I do with my life? And at this stage, whatever stage I'm in, and if I focus on that, I will do something of value to myself and others. And it's not always easy. Sometimes you feel like crap, but you want to kick yourself in the butt and do something, and that's because I feel like I owe it to those men who died, all the trauma. I feel like I owe them to do something positive for this nation. And if I see wrongs, to talk about it, to explore it and let people know, hey, that's not right.
So the being the chaplain here at the VFW,
yeah,
that I'm sure that's fulfilling some of that for you, correct?
Well, it is, and me and my wife came over here with some friends, quite 10, 12 years ago or whatever, and then we had a birthday party here. Marine did it. It'd be 10 years ago, a little over. And we just liked it, and we liked the people. I had some people over at Hayesville say, well, they drink beer over there. I said, I drink a beer now and then. I'm not going to, I'm going to knock people for having a beer. I don't want anybody to be a drunk, but, as far as having a cordial drink. Yeah, and we get hung up on things, and our people do. And it's, I became chaplain kind of there's an old man, he's passed now. He was in his probably mid-90s or in his 90s. I don't have it now, but I've got it probably in the car. He gave me his chaplain's hat. And he said, you're going to be chaplain. And I said, well, now, wait, they've got to approve who's going to be chaplain. He just said, you're going to be chaplain. And so I did become chaplain. How long, I don't know. I'm at the will of the other officers and the people, and so I have to be prepared to make a change. Who knows how long they'll want me.
Has that been fulfilling for you, though?
Oh, yes, it is. I've talked with some people here at the post that it's just a blessing to be able to help in some way. And you can't solve all the problems, but you can help in some way, and you can pray. And the hardest thing I have is to teach unconditional forgiveness, because that prepares your heart to receive. And people have a hard time with that. And I know they do. I understand that can be a hard thing.
Yeah.
But there's, Jesus went to his death clean. He prayed for forgiveness of his tormentors. So, and it's not easy. It's not, but it's profitable.
Yeah.
It cleans up your mind.
It's to me, it's a natural law
a natural law. Yes.
It's just, I don't know if you can explain it, but it is one of those things that's true. If you hold on to stuff, it just eats you alive.
Yeah. I've had things I'd hold on to for a little while. Some people poisoned my dog, and that was a hard thing for me. And I'd let them hunt on my land. I think they're afraid of the dog. Finally, I was down there before I buried him. And I looked and I said, Father, this is in your hands. This is in your hands. I'm turning it loose because it'll eat you up. It makes you less than you might be.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do, is help people to be greater than they are, or, and Christ did that. My goodness.
Go ahead. I don't know what you're going to say.
I'm going to say this one. It's just one verse, but there's more verses around it. But it says, Paul writes, you have borne the image of the earthly man. However, you shall bear the image of the heavenly man. And then I hope to teach that this Easter Sunday in my sermon, because what he goes through and how he teaches us, it's special. God is special. When we really know him, that's a hard thing. I didn't know him, but, I had some jail ministers ask me about, when I said, I became a non-believer. They said, what if you died? And I said, you don't conjure up faith. You can't make it real just because you want it to be real. It's taking a hold of that yoke with Christ and learning from him. We have to do that. Otherwise, we're ineffective. And we will often do things that man dictates that we do. Yeah.
Yeah. Honor flight.
Beautiful. Beautiful. My wife came out on that, and I think we had some things going on in Asheville anyway, but she came out. We were in different vehicles, but we got on that plane, and just a lot of camaraderie and everything with the guys on there. Now, this guy's quit drinking completely now, but there's a guy. He said, you want one of these? He had one of these little whiskey or bourbon things, a small one, like a shot, I guess, whatever it is. I said, yeah, I'll take one. And I don't like sweet stuff that much. I nursed that thing all day long, eating those chocolate chip cookies they gave us. I don't particularly like to eat a lot of chocolate chip cookies, but that's what I did. It actually blended pretty well with it. Yeah.
And coming back with the people there greeting you on the honor flight?
It was tremendous. I can remember now. I'm squatted down, and I've got this jacket that's colored red, white, and blue, and it's a leather jacket. And this little girl we're right there together. And I don't know what we talked about or whatever, but that's sticks in my mind. And it's the honor flight was absolutely beautiful. Not only were they singing, as Butch said, they had a band. The firemen hosed our plane like you would not believe. It's a wonder they hadn't had protests from wasting water. But some things are worth celebrating. And so it's the most beautiful welcoming I've ever seen. See, I didn't get the stuff a lot of people get because I came in on a stretcher. I didn't get the spit in the face or you're a child killer or any of that stuff. The first time I went with the American Legion in Hayesville over to Franklin, and I wasn't going to go because it was mist and rain. And anyway, I had a thin rain jacket, a thin poncho.
Yep. Just there you go. Perfect. Yep.
Yeah. I had a thin poncho, and I took that and I went. It brought tears to my eyes. I'd never heard it before. Thank you. Thank you. My gosh, we need to do more thank yous, Yeah. It's, and a lot of people, they go against the wrong person. Don't go against the soldier. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Their responsibility when they decide is to obey orders or die in the attempt. And that's a fact. That's, and that's who we are. That's how it has to be. Otherwise, we won't have anything,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking back, your life, what's your takeaway from all that you experienced in Vietnam?
Well, I take away from all my experience. Reminds me of that movie. I can't remember the name of it, but encountering those people and the hardships of the Vietnamese people and the hardships of the soldiers, it's pretty phenomenal. And I would say that those people want me to be a better man. That's in one of those movies. I don't know if you've ever seen that guy. He's a nut, but he plays the movie well. And, being a soldier makes me want to be a better man. And it also makes me want to call out the injustice. If there's injustice, to not be shy about it. And I've been shy about it. I don't like to rub people the wrong way. But when you've loaded people up like I have, you're able to talk about it,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked about it in Hiawassee a couple of years ago and was well received, and I just got out of the hospital. I've been in the hospital about 2 or 3 weeks, and it was a challenging time, but at the same time, one lady came up to me and she said, I could listen to you all day. I'm not complimenting myself. That's what she said, but if I'd have talked all day, she'd have probably got tired of it in a little while. Well, you can be too long-winded, but it's appreciative to hear that, to know that you're saying something worthwhile.
Yeah, I feel like the things you guys experienced over there are worth hearing.
Yeah.
People ought to know what you went through.
Right.
There's a cost associated with
There is,
all this, and it's pretty heavy,
It is. Yeah.
But thank you, sir.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
What an honor.
Yeah.
Really, what an honor.
Yeah. Well, God bless you.
You too, Dwight. Thank you. Wow. If you or someone that you know isn't getting the VA benefits that you've earned, please click this link. We've teamed up with a group of experts that can help veterans build stronger VA claims and get the benefits they deserve. Please click this link for a free consultation.